Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Snell here at Bob Reeves Brass. So grateful to have you joining us from wherever you are around the world. So first things first, show us some love in the comments. Let us know where you're viewing from. Hit like, hit subscribe, all of that stuff. Because while we're going live, that'll help us be more visible to trumpet players around the world. And I'm so excited and so honored to have my special guest today. I'll bring him on in a moment. Jazz trumpeter Marquis Hill. Now, Marquis was featured on our podcast, The Other Side of the Bell. Actually, a few years ago, he was out here playing at the Playboy Jazz Festival at the Hollywood Bowl and sat down with me for a wonderful interview. So you can find that online at bobreeves.com, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. It'll be there. So by all means, please check out that interview. But today, very special, he is here with us live to answer your questions. So Marquis, a fabulous young player. He won the Thelonious Monk jazz competition. And he's really prolific. He's on a number of albums. The latest one, Soul Sign, we'll talk a little bit about. He's been doing live streams with Just Jazz TV, made in Chicago, and then most recently made in LA. And he's going to do some more of those that we'll talk about, and a whole lot more. So without further ado, let me bring in today's special guest, Marquis Hill. Marquis, how you doing?
I'm well, man. How are you?
Oh man, it's so great to have you. And thank you again. Last week we were supposed to do this, and the technology got the best of us. So I'm so grateful that you were able to reschedule and flexible enough to do it again this week and talk trumpet.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. Absolutely.
Awesome. So while guests the viewers are asking their questions in the comments, I'll kind of get things going. Can you talk about your Made in LA that you just streamed last week?
Yeah. So we did. Well, first of all, it's a part of the series that I've been doing. We started with the Made in Chicago series last month, where we pretty much highlighted prolific composers out of Chicago. So we did the music of Ernest Dawkins. We did the music of who else did we do? We did Ernest Dawkins. We did Nicole Mitchell. We played the music of Malachi Thompson. We played the music of Von Freeman, the music of Fred Anderson. So just some of the staple names in Chicago. And this past month we did Made in LA. Same concept. I wanted to just highlight some of the most prestigious composers out of LA. So we did the music of Chico Hamilton. We played the music of Charles Mingus, Eric Dolphy, Roy Ayers, and also there's one more. I'm blanking right now. There's so much music in my head, but yeah.
So when you're doing a project like that, where you're focusing on composers and musicians from a certain area, as a young artist yourself, like where do you find that balance of paying homage to who came before you, but then also putting your own twist on it? Like how do you balance that line?
Mm-hmm. I really make sure that I have my feet in both worlds. It's natural for me to create music that I naturally hear and what's influencing me because I'm present. I'm here right now. So I just make sure I write and compose music that's from me. But a part of this, the history and what's so great about this music is it is a big continuum. So we have to pay homage to the old, to our history, to those composers. And for me, in doing that, I grow because I put my sound and my twist to the things that they left behind. So this is a part of this made concept. We play Eric Dolphy music, we play Charles Mingus music, but we flip them and we put our modern day voices on them. So for me, it's about just having that balance and realizing that it's all connected.
That's beautiful. And you have another one coming up. Is that correct? You just finished Made in LA, and what's the next one you're doing?
Yeah, so I just wanted to keep the concept going. We're going to do Made in New York sometime in April, sometime this month. And we're going to do the music of Jackie McLean. We're going to do the music of Bud Powell, Sonny Rollins, Cecil Taylor, and there's one more that I'm blanking right now. But same concept, taking this great music that they've recorded and left behind and just reimagining it and and presented it in this modern day time, you know.
What a great project. We have folks checking in already. We got looks like Salazar El Musico Carlos. I think hopefully that's Carlos, says Marquis. Talk about a connection already. He said he just bought your old Yamaha Miyashiro horn from Josh Landris. So
Yo.
he's saying howdy from San Antonio, Texas, and we got Nathan Samuelson, who was also a podcast guest up in Canada, saying hope we're doing well, and he loves your stuff, Marquis. So a lot of folks checking in already. And of course, if you have any questions for Marquis, just leave them there in the comments. It doesn't matter if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. I'll be able to see them, and then we'll be able to direct your questions right to Marquis here. Marquis, one of the things I want to talk about, your last album, Soul Sign, you go through the different zodiac symbols. How did that come around? What was your inspiration for that? Talk us through that process.
Yeah, man. So this was a special project for me. This, I call it my quarantine baby. I started really just getting more into the zodiacs towards the beginning of last year when everything kind of locked down. I've always been into zodiac throughout my life because it's just always resonated with me. But this quarantine, I had time to slow down and focus on whatever I wanted to focus on, and my energy was pulled towards the zodiacs and the constellations. So I studied them and I just dug deeper. I checked out a bunch of podcasts and astrologers online and checked out a bunch of books. And I was just inspired by so much truth that you find in the zodiacs. You know, what artists we do, we express the things we're inspired by. So that kind of birthed Soul Sign. 12 tracks, Aries through Pisces. And I created, it's pretty much an instrumental beat tape that features two astrologers talking about, you know, the high qualities and the low qualities of each zodiac sign over these instrumental beats. So I was inspired, man, and this was my baby.
Beautiful. So your quarantine baby, I love it.
Oh,
One of the things I love about your music, Marquis, is it's not. I mean, first of all, even though you're a headliner or it's it's your feature, your featured album, I you're not afraid to take a backseat role on your tunes. It's not, here's the tune and here's Marquis playing a solo and, giving it everything you've got, letting it all, hang loose kind of thing. It's more about the tune. It's more about the music, and you're there. I mean, obviously you're featured on tunes, and there's times where you do let loose. But I love how your albums are pieces of art instead of, okay, here's Marquis doing something else, that sort of thing. How much of that is intentional? I mean, is it as a jazz musician and with kind of the model that's been established before you? I mean, is there a pressure to do that sort of thing?
I mean, all of it's very intentional for me, and I've always had that insight and had that vision in mind. It's more about the music. I think about a project that's like a movie, a cinematic feature. You want listeners to walk away with, a feeling about the entire project, not this solo on this track was great or this, piano solo here was great. You want, them to be presented with the entire masterpiece of a project. And I've just always had that in my mind. I think the heavy solo, play the melody, solo, melody out, that's more of the jazz tradition, which is cool. But now we're in another day where music has changed and listeners' attention spans have changed, vision and direction has changed. So for me, it's just always been about presenting this thing, this piece of work to the world and not, Marquis Hill. And even at my live shows, we all get an opportunity to stretch out, but I make sure I feature everyone in the group and make sure each tune isn't extremely long, make sure there's interludes, just make sure it's a show and not just a tune.
So it's intentional. That's brilliant, and it really shows to the kind of how you've transcended from just being a trumpet player, to, it's like you said, it's a piece of music, it's an art form.
Yeah.
So, and that's cool that you carry that out live as well. So we have some questions coming in. Marquis, love your sound. This comes from Mike. How did you develop your sound? And then also they want to know if advice for young players, want to play jazz or do what you're doing, how to develop your unique sound, for each individual.
Mm-hmm. I tell all my younger students, and really all my students in general, the sound is in your head. Like for me, what really helped me develop my sound was realizing that the sound was in my head, and then just listening to musicians who had that type of sound. I loved growing up. I'm reflecting right now in high school, eighth grade high school. I was listening to Art Farmer. I was listening to Lee Morgan. I was listening to Idris Suleiman. I was listening to, Freddie Hubbard, 60s and 70s Freddie Hubbard. He played with this thick, velvety, airy sound. So I naturally was attracted to that sound. So I sought out players who had that type of sound, and listened to them and transcribed them. And then also one thing that I talk about a lot in my master classes and with my students, the concept of playing free. What I would do in high school and even to this day, we have our practice routine. We practice after our session is over. What I do, I sit and relax for 5 minutes. Then I pick the horn up. I completely try to clear my mind. I'm not thinking about rhythm. I'm not thinking about pitch. I'm not thinking about melody. I'm trying to be completely open and free. And I just play shapes and colors that come to me naturally. I record myself playing these shapes and colors. And a cool thing about that is you can go back and listen to those things and transcribe those things and compose around those ideas. But in terms of developing the sound, sitting and playing free, naturally just playing the colors and shapes that come out of you. You're not thinking about, I want to play over these changes, or I want to sound this way. You're just playing what comes to you natural. And in doing that every single day, it helped me develop the natural type of sound that I gravitate towards. So that would be my advice to younger students as well, to help develop. And also transcribing the players who have the type of sound that you love. Like there's no way around that. If you love Lee Morgan's sound, go find Lee Morgan playing a ballad and transcribe and try to sound like that.
Beautiful, yeah, beautiful advice, and it's amazing. You can hear 100 trumpet players, and to be able to pick out, an individual. A lot of people end up sounding the same because, like you said, you're not working on your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own voice. So it's something as we're going through scales and patterns and licks and stuff. Yeah, you have to get that under your fingers, but you have to develop your own voice. So that's beautiful. It's great that you're including that in your master classes. Teaching on to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks checking in. Jeff White says, "Beautiful sound, Marquis. Keep up the beautiful work." So, for those of you just joining us, we have folks joining in. This whole Q&A with Marquis will be archived here on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you miss the first questions, feel free to go back and rewind at the end. And the most important part is two things: show us some love in the comments. Let us know where you're viewing from around the world. Things are starting to open back up again. Marquis was just out here in LA a few weeks ago, so we're starting to be able to see people, but this is still a way for us to connect with musicians still pretty much sitting at home. So let us know where you're viewing from in the comments and ask your questions of Marquis. Speaking of which, Nathan's got a question for you, Marquis. He wants to know how you stay in shape while on the road. It's a great question.
Yeah, it gets difficult because you have lobby calls sometimes 3 a.m. A lot of times there's not healthy food accessible. Really it's just being intentional about it and like mind over matter type of thing, making sure you do some workout in the hotel. Two summers ago when we were touring heavy before this whole COVID thing, I was running 2 miles a day. So just making sure I get up as early as I need to, hit the gym. The hotels have gyms. In Europe, they have small gyms. Hit the treadmill, push-ups in the hotel. Just stay active. And it's really about the food choices as well when you're on the road, making sure you're making a better choice. Yeah.
And then like trumpet-wise, do you have a routine that you do when you're traveling, or a warm-up routine? What does that look like?
Yeah. I've been doing the same routine in a variation of this routine since high school. I have a longer version of it where, it can be an hour, hour and a half. I have a 35-minute version of it. I have a 10-minute version of it. So I focus on free buzzing, mouthpiece buzzing, breathing, articulation and lip slurs. So some type of combination of those things in that order. 10 minutes if it's right before the gig, I step to the side and I do it for 10 minutes. A lot of the times on the road, I put the harmony mute in and I make sure I get 15, 20 minutes just to make sure my chops are strong for the gig. But really just making sure you do something. But I hit those 5 things every session.
So it's the consistency. And that's I love that you brought up the point of, especially on touring, the health side of it. Because I don't know if, when you first started touring, like when we started going around with the shop and you go to a new country, then you're eating and it's like you're on vacation. But
Yeah.
if you're touring all the time, then it's like you're on vacation all the time. And then you end up eating terribly and not taking care of your body. And so, when
Work.
you're on the road with a job to do, you have to take care of yourself, not
Yeah.
just with the chop wise, but also physically. So, yeah, brilliant advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll all get back to touring again.
Right.
Right. So more folks checking in. David from Virginia says, "Hey." Freddie Gavita says, "Hey, Marquise." And Nick Turner checking in. Besides keeping your chops in shape, along with keeping your chops in shape, do you ever take time off from the horn? Where you take a break for like a week or more?
hmm So I do. I never plan it. I know some people who plan it. Like, you know what, this month, this week, I'm not going to play the horn. I naturally just let it happen. Sometimes I don't feel like touching the horn. When that happens, I won't force myself to play. I just won't play that day. You know, sometimes that's 2 days. Sometimes that's 3 days. Sometimes that's 4 days. So I just kind of go with the flow and follow how I feel. Yeah, but I do take off. I think it's important. Um, Reset the chops, let the brain relax, put that energy into something else, and you step back to the horn and you're refreshed and recharged. So I definitely take time off, but I don't plan it as much as some other players.
Great answer. And yeah, so we trumpet players, sometimes we get so connected and so attached that it's almost a stigma if you take a day off, and it's sometimes we need that break, right?
We do. It's like it's lifting weights. You can't lift weights every single day. You need time for the muscles to heal and grow. That's how you actually grow.
So one thing I want to talk to you about, I mean, you're still a young guy, and I was looking at you. You have 10 albums out at least, right, under your own name. I mean, that's quite prolific. But like one a year, is that?
Yeah, there was a time when I challenged myself. It was a personal challenge at a
Really?
certain point too. I wanted to put out and just write music, put out product, put out music. Really, it was about just challenging myself to compose sets of music and challenge myself to release them.
Hmm.
And I've been doing that. I started that I think 2012, 2013. Um, I may have took a year off and threw out there, but yeah, pretty much one a year.
And
hmm
that's always impressed me, just as a creative standpoint, because I mean, like you said, you had your quarantine baby, which was your soul sign. But I mean, each one of those, it's to be able to put that out there in the world. Where do you get your inspiration from? I know some of them are societal. Like there's a message behind them. It's not, hey, I'm writing a jazz tune and with some cool changes. Can you talk about where you pull your inspiration from and the messages behind your tunes?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on which project, but kind of overall, uh, I'm inspired by just everything in life. The things I'm checking out, something I'm reading. Um, I'm digging into history, learning about different civilizations and things in history, just nature and life around me. Conversations with colleagues and friends, they might say a phrase that really stuck out to me, and I started to hear music. So I would, that would be the title of the tune. And a lot of the times that happen, I'll have a title of a song before the music is written. I'll be reading something or I'll be listening to poetry or music and I hear a lyric and it just, it sounds cool and it jumps out to me and it resonates with me. I'll jot that down. And sometimes I'll just meditate on that lyric or that word and start to hear music and compose around that. So really I'm inspired just everyday life, man, everyday life experiences, music, our elders in our history, our great legends behind us, listening to old Freddie records, I may get inspired to write something. So just being open and tapped into everything that's around you. And that's where I pull most of my inspiration.
That's beautiful. We have a follow up from David. Wants to know what is your approach to composing? Do you start with a melodic line or a harmony? I know you mentioned like when you were doing your free form, your 5 minutes. Sometimes you get an idea through there. I mean, is that where those nuggets start?
Yeah, honestly, it varies. That's definitely one of the methods that I've been using, in the past 5, 10 years, playing free, listening to those recordings, sitting down and transcribing and taking little shapes and rhythms that I like from those free recordings and composing around those ideas. Sometimes I'll hear a groove, I'll hear rhythm, and I'll program that into Logic or Ableton so I can just really listen to that groove. Then I'll start stacking and building upon that. Sometimes I'm sitting at the piano and I'm just playing chords. I hear progression that I really like that I stumble upon. I'll keep building on that progression and start to play melodies over that. So it really kind of varies. A lot of the times, I'm just out in the world and I'll hear a bass line in my mind or a rhythm again or a melody. I'll take out my iPhone, I'll record that idea in my phone, let it live in my phone for a minute, come home, listen to that idea, transcribe that idea and build upon it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it really varies, but yeah.
It starts with a nugget and then yeah, but I think what the cues are saying is you get it down. You're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, let it develop, let it not hibernate, let it you know what I'm saying.
As quick as they come, they'll go. They'll go right back out to the ether. So we all have our phone on us all the time. I hear something, I'll whistle it into my voice memo or hum it into my voice memo, so I can just document that idea that came to me in that moment.
Beautiful. Yeah, we got Rory checking in, loving the interview. Thank you, Rory. I think he's checking in from the UK. So a lot of folks joining in. We are here live with Marquis Hill for probably the next 15, 20 minutes or so. So let us know where you're viewing from in the comments. Let us know. We can see your comments, whether you're viewing on YouTube or Facebook. And most importantly, leave us a question for Marquis. Says now's your chance to pick his brain about anything, trumpet or jazz, or we can talk about pretty much anything. Chicago, good places to eat in Chicago. And you were in New York for a while too, so you probably know all the places.
I know a couple spots, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Nathan says he loves your meditation tape record. Can you talk a little bit about what what got you into meditation and the concept for that record?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So meditation tape, that was another special one for me. Um, this was when I lived uptown in New York. One of those crazy New York stories. I moved in with a friend of mine. His name is Ethan. He's a drummer, Ethan Cogan, excuse me. And Ethan studies with Marvin Boogaloo Smith. Marvin Boogaloo Smith is one of the legends of this music. He played with Archie Shepp. He played with Sun Ra. So I move in with Ethan, and Marvin Boogaloo Smith is also living in this apartment because he studies with him. So they have this mentorship relationship. It's actually beautiful. He takes care of Marvin, and it's a beautiful situation. Excuse me.
Yeah. Take your time.
But yeah, one of these crazy New York stories where you move into a spot and you're living with the great Marvin Boogaloo Smith. So each morning over breakfast with Boogaloo, we would sit and just talk about different concepts of meditation. He's into Buddhism and he meditates and chants every morning. So every single morning over breakfast, like we're talking about these concepts of the universe. We're talking about concepts of meditation and going within. And I was just like, this is some heavy shit that's happening. Let me record this. So I asked Boogaloo, can I record these conversations? And he said, okay, recorded these conversations, went back, listened to them, started to hear music. So I started to chop up these interviews and just compose music and beats and chords around them. And I was inspired by the things he was saying to create the meditation tape. So that's really kind of the inception of it, conception of it.
You were living it. I mean, it's kind of as an extension of your life at the time.
Absolutely. And it was heavy being able to chop it up with Boogaloo every single morning for 2 years, Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that question, Nathan, and yeah, great insight into that album. Yeah, we got another. I love these Q&As because it ends up being kind of like an old podcast guest hang, because we have a lot of folks checking in. Simon Sweeney, who was on the podcast not too long ago down in Sydney, Australia. So he's chiming in, says, hey. So Simon wants to know, he saw a video of you playing with the WDR band in Cologne in Germany, which said it was an amazing video. Could you talk a little bit about that gig and that project with the WDR band?
Yeah, that was a memorable one. I got the opportunity to spend, I think, like 10 or 12 days over there with them. We rehearsed for an entire week, and then we had a week of performances. They arranged, I think, 6 or 7 of my original compositions. It was one of those beautiful opportunities. I sent them 6 or 7 tunes that I think would compile a pretty diverse set. They had an in-house arranger. He arranged the hell out of this music. We rehearsed it for a week, recorded the rehearsal. It's in Germany, so everything is, top notch and on time, and like it was incredible. So we rehearsed for a week, played these gigs, and documented. We had some recordings of it. It was incredible just to hear, this incredible composer, arranger flip these tunes of mine that I've been playing and heard for years and just arrange them for a big band. So it was dope. It was a dope experience.
Wow. So how long were you over there, you mentioned?
I was over there about 12 days, something like that.
Wow. What an experience.
We rehearsed for a week or 5 or 6 days and then performed for about a week or 5 or 6 days.
So, and most of your stuff is smaller group. I mean, 5, 6 piece, right? So what was it like, hearing your stuff in like a big band setting? Have you ever done anything like that with that big of a group?
I've had a couple tunes of mine arranged for big band, but for high school, like guest artist type of thing. But to hear it at this professional level, and it was incredible, man. He pulled different things out of the music that it was dope. Things that were incredible. I feel I write music that works in a small group, works in a large group, works if you swing it, works if you groove it. It works if you play it at a ballad. It works if you shift the tempo. And I think that's a sign of, not to toot my own horn, but a sign of that's
you're allowed to.
That's beautiful music, when you can play it in different styles, and a lot of the tunes that I sent to them, he arranged them in different styles, and it was cool to hear them from a different angle. So it was dope.
Oh man, thanks for sharing that experience. How cool, man. And WDR, they're a killer big band. I mean, and there's not too many professional big bands around the world anymore that are, basically on staff to play, and they have staff rangers and all that stuff. So
it was incredible.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Simon. And I should just take a moment here to mention we are here live with Marquis Hill. We're going to be here probably another 15 minutes or so. So you have 2 jobs. One is to hit that like or subscribe button, because we do these almost every week. Chat about trumpet or trombone, all kinds of different fun stuff. So number 1, hit those buttons and let us know where you're viewing from around the world. And last but not least, ask your questions of Marquis. And we have some great ones coming in. And another podcast. You see, this is the thing. Like I always say, success leaves clues. And, these Q&As, I mean, it's an opportunity to learn from players like yourself, Marquis, that are just, that are doing it. And so many of the people asking questions are professional players that have been on the podcast themselves, because they're still learning. And the next one is a fabulous player, a good friend, Morris Northcutt. He says, Marquis, I'm a big fan. Beyond the editing of your albums and stuff, how closely involved are you in the mixing and mastering of your albums?
I'm one of those artists who I like to have my hand on everything. So I'm involved in the recording, the mixing, the mastering, the artwork, everything. So I'm pretty involved. I'm normally in the room at least for the first 2 sessions until I get comfortable with, whoever's mixing and mastering. And I feel like, okay, you've got the sound, then you can finish it up. I work with a guy out of Chicago now where we've got a relationship. I can send him the stuff and he knows the sound. There's another guy out of Boston, Charles Haynes. He worked on the last project. Everything was via email because he knew the sound. But for the most part, I'm extremely involved, because I know how I want the music to hear in my head. I know okay, this tune in particular has got this groove, but the hi-hat needs to be a little bit higher because it really pushes everything. So I know how I want it to hear, so I have to communicate that to the engineer. So I'm really involved in all of that.
And so the follow up to that then is over the the 10 albums that you've done. Has the process changed? Has it evolved?
Recording,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah. How so? How's that changed since you first started recording?
Man, yes and no. My first handful of projects were more, straight ahead jazz projects where we were going in, just taking takes, take a take, chill for 2 minutes, take another take, go back and listen. Want to take one more take? We'll take a take, eat lunch, we're taking full live takes. But nowadays, I'll write music, I'll program it into Ableton or Logic so I can hear how I want it to sound. I'll write out, transcribe the thing that I just programmed, send that demo recording to the musicians with the music, come into rehearsal, play that. Now leave space to actually change and expand and stretch certain things. So the process is definitely changed from more live takes to, you know, more produced and more, again, like presenting these full concepts. So, more layering of myself, more layering of harmonies, more layering of trumpets, more electronic sounds depending on the concept of the project. So,
Yeah, great, interesting. And I'm curious then about your playing. How's your playing evolved since your first, when you won the competition? Where do you think you are now as a player since over the last 10 years?
yeah, growing. I'm growing, but still shedding like everybody. Trumpet is unforgiving. This music, there's so much to learn. It's literally infinite. There is no, I'm at my highest level. I've mastered. I can, that doesn't exist in this music. And that's the beautiful part. You continue to grow and be inspired by different things and play different shapes. So, I listen to my projects, my first project to my most recent project, and I hear little growth each project. And that's all I want. That's what I go for. I want to continue to grow. Yeah, that's it, man. Growth.
Yeah. Well, so then, where do you think you're going from here? I know that's kind of a no one knows, but I'm curious. Where do you think your playing's going to go? If you could look 10 years into the future, where do you think you're going with your playing?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, man. But I want to still continue to grow when it comes to trumpet playing. Flexibility, sound, continue to deepen my sound. Because my thing is when my chops and my sound, everything is really locked in, and you're comfortable in your horn, the more your fundamentals are get together, the easier it is to actually articulate and play these things you're hearing in your head. You don't have to worry about the technical part of it. Your chops feel good. You shed flexibility. You have a good control over the horn, so it gives you more freedom to actually play. So that's one of my main goals, to continue to get better at the actual trumpet itself, which in turn makes and allows me to be more freer to improvise because I can play the things that I'm hearing more freely.
Beautiful, beautiful. We got Graham checking in. Speaking of sound, and we talked a little bit about this in the opening, about your unique sound and how you've developed it. But Graham says he's been seeing you play many different trumpets over the years, but he says it always sounds very much like you. So he wants to know if you've found the perfect trumpet yet. And then also, you kind of if you talk a little bit again about how you developed your unique sound, and how you keep it no matter what equipment you play.
Mm-hmm. Again, I realized the sound is in your head. The sound that you have here is going to come out of whatever horn you're playing. So for me, I am one of those players. I kind of jump around instruments trying to find the most comfortable horn. For me, it's all about comfort for mouthpiece and horn because, again, I'm going to get my sound. Like I've discovered that I'm going to find my sound and manipulate the horn or whatever you want to call it to get the type of sound that I naturally have on whatever horn I have that I'm playing at the time. But for me, it's more about how the horn feels, the comfortability of it. Does it feel good in my hand? Does it sit good? Does it slot well? And again, just developing that for me, man, it was a really big part of it was sitting down and playing free. I talked about this a little while ago, in this interview,
Yeah.
but after my practice, I would just sit again. I'm not trying to think about anything. It's almost a form of meditation if you're being honest. You're trying to clear your mind. You're trying to silence the clutter that's in your mind. You're not thinking about pitch. You're not thinking about, the big band chart that you have to play. You're trying to be completely free and you're just playing the melodies that come to you. And in doing that, I developed, the type of sound that I like. I developed, and took note to the notes that I like to play on the trumpet. I took note to the keys that I like to play in. I took note to, you know, which pitches I can manipulate, which sounds I can get a more fluffier sound on, which pitches more in the higher register. Okay, I can't really get that more fluffy sound, so I have to do this. So it's just about really being connected with yourself, and sitting and just playing free, not thinking about anything. You're connecting with yourself and the horn. And I really developed my thing in doing that.
Yeah. And I would just jump in and say, I mean, we had the pleasure of working with you. I mean, we've worked together for years whenever you've come through town. And a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago, I mean, hearing your sound, in the same room, you have one of the best trumpet sounds. I mean, it's just so rich and so broad, and you can play a note, just a G in the staff, and it just has so much life to it. I mean, we're honored that you were here and playing stuff, and anyone watching from around the world, you know, to go hear you live because really have a special sound. What impressed me among of all the other things was you could play just the sweetest, most tender note, and then the next note you could just it was fire. You could just go and to be able to turn that on and off. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. So, you're one of those guys that practices what he preaches, so to speak. You're not. I've heard it firsthand for those of you watching. So I didn't mean to, go on about you, Marquis, but just wanted
Oh,
to let
that's
you know.
love. That's love.
Um,
That is
uh,
love.
so speaking of which, we talked a little bit about this while you were here. This is coming from Ruari. He's checking in from Edinburgh, so over in Scotland. The world of music has changed, obviously, in a number of different ways, but certainly in the pandemic. And Marquise, you've done some live stream concerts yourself. So how do you think with streaming and online concerts, how do you think about what that means for professional musicians moving forward and yourself?
It's hard to call. Who knows what's going to happen, but I have a feeling I can see. The world is going to open up eventually. Things are going to get back to some type of normalcy. Touring will eventually get back to some type of normalcy. But what I see or foresee is while musicians are still touring, they're still putting on their own live streams, or even clubs and festivals and promoters. They're going to keep this platform of live streaming the live performance, so you can reach the audience who are actually physically in the building, and also live stream this set and reach potential thousands of people, millions of people around the world. So I think the whole game has changed when it's come to live streaming. It's not going anywhere. So even when we're touring, I have a feeling these clubs are going to continue to live stream to people. You have the people in the audience, you have the people around the world, and they're going to have to pay artists for that as well. And it took us by storm and by shock, this whole COVID thing. But I honestly think this is what artists should have been doing in the first place a long time ago. We should have our studio set up. We should have the ability to record ourselves. We should have cameras that we can tour with, have in our case and set up before we go on and record our sets and live stream our own sets. So I think if you look at the positive of what has happened, it's shifted kind of the dynamic of the game for the better. But yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, like you said, like musicians are now kind of used to it, which we've always kind of shunned. You think, no, it's part of the live experience, but I
Yeah.
mean, think about how many people now watch a movie on Netflix or Disney Plus. Yeah, you kind of miss the live going to the movie theater experience, but on the same token, you don't have a waiter coming over asking for drink orders or someone smoking, things like that, and you can actually focus in the comfort of your own home on a wonderful concert like your Just Jazz TV stuff that you did. I mean, it was the streaming and the production quality was so high. It's like we were in the room for you. with you sonically and with the camera shots and stuff. So yeah, I mean it's not never going to replace that live experience like you said,
No,
but
no,
it adds another level, I think.
I agree.
So
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful.
Nothing will replace that exchange of energy when live people are in the audience. And I think people really we crave for that. So even while live streaming, there are people who want to come show up to the venues because we want that. So it's really you have your choice. You get to stay home and stream, or you can go out to the show. So I see clubs and festivals really adopting this. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And if you have young kids like me, and you don't want to pay for a babysitter,
All
because they're not
right.
21 yet, can't get in the club. Yeah, we can watch from home. So yeah, Rory loves that answer. So you wanted to say thank you. One of the things I want to talk to you about, Marquise, was we talk about trumpet playing, we talk about composition, and transcribing, learning solos, that sort of stuff. But we don't talk a lot about feel and rhythm. And how critical that is. Because I mean, you could play all over the horn and play in and outside of changes, but if you don't have a good feel and good rhythm, you might as well not be on stage. So can you talk about first how you developed, your sense of rhythm and feel, and then any advice you have for a young player who wants to develop that so they're strong in that regard?
Yeah. Um, for me, it's I use this analogy. How do we learn to speak as babies? We're listening to our parents speak to us all day. We're soaking all this language from our family members in the house. It's the same thing with this music. If we want to have better time, we have to listen to musicians and artists who have that great time that we want. Um, transcribe these artists, listen to these artists, listen to music that grooves, that forces you to work on your time. Listen to artists that swing, listen to artists that groove. Bombard yourself with this. Really put yourself in this. If you want to work on groove. Also, I tell all of my students, man, young, old, dance. Don't be afraid to dance. Like this music, it's a dance music. What's the best way to have a relationship to the music you're playing? Move your body, being able to dance. If you can have a solid two-step, and feel comfortable and relaxed doing that, that equates to, a decent time feel. So work on rhythm with moving your body. For me, I go back and I reflect. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a house with my mom. She played the Motown music. She played Barry White. She played Marvin Gaye, the Isley Brothers, all this music that's just rooted in time and groove, African rhythms. So I was just raised around that, soaking that up. So it's natural for me to have that type of time, to be honest, to be attracted to that type of music, to when I compose music, to write music that way. When I hear melody, to naturally write melody that's, similar to the things that I listened to when I was growing up. So just really putting yourself in it, listening to music, go online, watch YouTube videos of people, just surrounding yourself with musicians who play with the time and groove and feel.
Yeah, that's it. That's like riding a bike. You gotta do it. A few more questions here, and we'll wrap up. One, Lance over on YouTube. We kind of talked about this. You can rewind. He's asking about who you're, who do you listen to develop your sound concept and your improv. Which you kind of talked about some of your influences, Freddie and Lee Morgan and others. But I'm going to kind of combine that because there's another question from Tomas who's also checking in about who are you listening to now? So are you still listening to the same kind of players? Are there new players you're listening to?
Hmm. Yeah, man, I'm one of those artists, man. I'm inspired by everything I listen to. I'm inspired by the different things I check out. So, of course, I'm still checking out the older cats. Like right now, I've been on a kind of a Woody Shaw thing. I go through phases of different cats. I've been checking out some Woody, Kenny Dorham, Freddie, all of the cats. Like, to be honest, like I just kind of cycle through the cats. But also, I'm listening to Phil Dizak. I'm listening to Ambrose. I'm listening to Jeremy Pelt's new record. Um, you know, like all the cats that are out on the scene now as well. So just making sure that I'm kind of in tune with what's happening. But, the stuff that the masters have left behind, that's really what we should be studying. It's about, being in touch with the present checking out what's happening, being influenced by that, but also studying, the language, the root where the shit's rooted in. We have to study that as well. So I'm listening to, combination of that. I listen to a lot of hip hop music as well. Yeah, because I'm influenced by all of these things.
Yeah, and it shows in your records. I mean, in your albums. It's yeah, you there's that deep rootedness in the history of where you came from and where jazz has come from and developed and evolved into. I mean, you can't even. I hate to even use like the genres because it's so interfused now with hip hop and rap and rock and pop and Latin. I mean, it's world beats, all kinds of things, and it's kind of its own art form now. So it's beautiful, but you still hear those, those influences. And then the last thing, we get a good trumpet player question, because we get too ethereal talking about music. What do you do on a bad day? As trumpet players, we've all had bad chop days. So is there something you do with your playing, or that you deal with that sort of thing?
Whew, man, it happens.
Right.
You just kind of have to fight through it, man. It depends if it's a bad day and you're home shedding, or it's a bad day and you're on the road or you're on a gig. Those are different situations. If I'm home, to be honest, I know we were talking about taking time off earlier from the horn. If I'm sitting down, if I'm home, I'm about to shed, I'm getting into the shed, and sometimes chops are just not, it just feels stiff. That might be a day where I'll just sit the horn down and say, you know what, I'll be back tomorrow. Sometimes I'll do that. When you're on the road and you're in the moment, in the heat of the moment, you just have to fight through it, man. Remind yourself of the fundamental things, the airflow. Air is crucial. Air is everything. Relax. Try not to have as much pressure. Just the trumpet stuff. So when you're in the heat of the battle, as much you can't really do much but fight through it and just really try to be able to lean on the things that you've been practicing for years. Lean on the fundamentals and trusting in the airflow and relaxing and getting your posture together. Yeah. But those days happen. Those days definitely happen.
We're all human, but that great advice. I mean, yeah, rely on our training and yeah, mindset. Get your mind in the right place. Knowing that you've done those things. You've done the shedding. Man, Marquis, it's almost an hour. It's amazing how fast time flies. So thank you so much for your time. Real quick, because a lot of people are just joining in. For those of you who are just watching, this whole 45, 50 minutes of Q&A with Marquis, so much great information will be archived on our YouTube and our Facebook channel. But I do want to talk a little bit, Marquis, because you had talked about your Made in New York that's coming up with Just TV live stream coming up in the future. Are there any other projects you have in the works that we can be excited about?
Yeah, I've got a live thing I'm going to put out this fall, maybe late summer this fall. I'm excited to put that out. This is the first live, like straight live recording that I've put out. So that for me, that's it's a big thing. I'm also working on Made in New York, the performance we're going to do actually at the Jazz Gallery on April 22nd, which is a couple of weeks from now. Yeah, that's what's happening in the next near future.
That's awesome. So yeah, we got a lot to look forward to. We got Bruno checking in from Brazil, so we hit all the continents.
Yo, Bruno.
So awesome. So and in this day and age, it's pretty easy to find everyone. But what's the best way for folks to know what's going on? Your website, social media?
Yeah, I mean both. Everybody's so accessible now. But my website, marquishill.com. Also my Facebook, Marquis Hill. Instagram, mhill sounds. Yeah, hit me up, show me some love, let me know what's happening, everyone. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Oh man, it's been my pleasure, and what an honor. First to have you on the podcast. I can't believe it was almost 5 years ago now. I think it's been that long. Time flies.
Great, yeah.
But yeah, what an honor to have you on here and share your wisdom. So thank you so much, Marquis, and hope to see you in person again soon.
Yeah, I'll see you in May for sure.
Yeah, looking forward to it, my friend. All right, take care. And thank you for watching. Man, what a fun almost hour that was, talking about jazz and trumpet and music and all that. A huge thank you to Marquis Hill again. Check out his website, marquishill.com, and follow him on social media. He's always posting stuff, and And by all means, check out his upcoming projects. We watched his Made in LA stream last week, and it was just burning. I mean, just beautiful music and compositions. I mean, the whole package. And one last plug for the podcast, The Other Side of the Bell. Make sure I hit the right button here. There we go. The Other Side of the Bell Trumpet Podcast. We're up to, I think, almost 90 episodes of players from all over the world, all walks of life, all for free. Hour or sometimes more interviews with greatest players in jazz and classical, and guys like Doc Severinsen and Tom Stevens, who's, players like that. Available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and of course online at bobreeves.com. So be sure to check that out, and we'll be back with more live Q&As. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and most importantly on YouTube, because eventually these are only going to be on YouTube. So you want to make sure you subscribe over there, because that'll be in the near future the only place you'll be able to see these live Q&As. And we have some other cool videos there about how we make mouthpieces and all the other stuff we do behind the scenes here at the shop besides doing podcasts and Q&As. So head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, because eventually that will be the only place to find these. Until then, thank you so much. Check out Marquis's projects coming up. And until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, go out and practice. And that's it. Bye for now.